Hello everyone, welcome to the course Disability Studies in India, Historical, Social and Culture Perspectives. In this module, we were talking about Indian literature and disability. Right? We have reached to the last lecture of this module. Right? So, what I will be doing in this lecture, as you see, the title is Marginalization and the quest for agency all right. So marginalization and the quest for agency. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read some slides for you. I have written a detailed explanation of these two novels, and if I feel that there are some points which are required to be explained, I will be explaining to them, so you just have to follow me and follow the slides. But before I go to the slide, two quick points. These novels are talking about agency. These novels are centered towards people with disability, and these novels are looking up autonomy, looking up the freedom, looking at the choices that they can make in their life. Is the choices made by the society for them, or they are making the choices for themselves? They are questioning the dominant narratives. They are challenging them. The expectations that people have towards them is getting frustrated. They are breaking those stereotypical notions that people have towards them. You got my point? So this is very important. And you see that these two characters, the one animal, another one is Brit, these two characters are projected who are constantly looking for their agency. One is looking for sexual agency, which in itself is a very major step in a society which does not consider disabled people as a sexual agent. All right. So with this, let's move to the first slide. And when we are moving to the first slide, here it goes. Both trying to grow and animals people, right? As I said, that we will read in the slides and we will explaining what they are all about. So in Animals People and Trying to Grow, they offer nuanced depiction of how physical difference positions their protagonist as perpetual outsider within their societies. Look at this. Trying to Grow and Animals People, they are offering nuanced depiction of how physical differences position their protagonist as perpetual outsider within their societies. Brit, in Trying to Grow, is born into a privileged Parsi family. Yet, his physical fragility keeps him at a distance from fully integrating into normal social life. Right? Let's look at it. Despite having certain privileges, Brit Kotwal, physical fragility is keeping him at distance from fully integrating into normal social life. Brit's family, well-meaning, yet often patronizing, struggles to reconcile their love for him, right? Struggle to reconcile their love for him with their discomfort about his differences, right? Love for him with their discomfort about his differences, demonstrating the subtle, perhaps unintentional forms of marginalization that come even from loved ones. Brit's desire to experience life as a typical young man, especially in terms of love and intimacy, that brings to light how social marginalization often extends beyond public spaces and penetrates private life, altering the dynamics of family, friendship, and romance. Let me think for a second, ask you to think for a second. You love someone, but you patronize someone is two different things. Sometime in case of people with disabilities, what happened that children are often patronized on the name of they are being loved. That is the subtle distinction is made by Firdaus Kanga in trying to grow. What happens with the Brit? He is from a privileged family. He is not deprived of any material means. He can have what he wants. He has loved ones around. But still, right? But still what we notice that his choices are often made by the family members thinking that he cannot make those choices. And as I have already told you that most of the time what happens, we internalize a lot of beliefs, ideas, which goes unnoticed. Right? It's because we have been conditioned to think that they cannot make their choices, and that is exactly what Brit does not like it. And in fact, despite the love is being showered over him, he's not happy with his life. It's not because his brittle bones, but because the way family treat him, the way family thinks about him, right? He's not being part of the social life because people is so worried about his brittle bones. However, he wants something else. He wants to have a social space. He wants to be included. But here you see the subtle difference I'm talking about. That is in a family, because family is a structure where oppression starts first. At the first level, oppression starts from there. You are being discriminated. You are not aware. Sometimes you are not even doing injustice, but you are consciously, unconsciously doing the same. You are not aware of it, but you're part of it. Right? So this is a physical differences can bring the anxiety among the people. And it leads to sometime a kind of a decision which is not liked by the people with disabilities or by the children with disabilities. Let's look at the next slide. So in the next slide, I am making some important points, right? So in trying to grow, it stays in more personal, focusing primarily on Brit's interaction within his family and immediate social circle, right? There is a interaction within his family and immediate social circle. The novel does touch upon societal expectations and norms, particularly around disability, sexuality, and family honor in Indian society. Firdaus Kanga subtly critiques these norms using Brit's humorous and introspective narrative voice to highlight the absurdity and cruelty of societal prejudice. Right? This is what I want you to focus upon. That how Kanga is critiquing these norms, that he is using British humorous and introspective narrative voice to highlight the absurdity and cruelty of social prejudice. The narrative's voice in trying to grow an animal's people contribute significantly to the impact of its story. Kanga uses a first-person narrative, allowing Brit's wit, sarcasm, and vulnerability to come through. This intimacy gives the reader a direct insight into Brit's experience, making his story both poignant and relatable. The humor in Brit's voice serves as a coping mechanism, softening the weight of his struggle while allowing reader to witness his resilience. So, he uses the humor. That's one of the important way through which you can explore the Brit's character. So, Kanga has used to direct the story from Brit's point of view. It's like coming From him, Brit's wit is very much exemplar, sarcasm is there, vulnerability is there. Animals people employs a conversational, like I'm talking about the way these stories are proceeding. What are the tone which has employed the point of view, sometimes confrontational one, mirroring animal's defiant attitude. Animal addresses the reader directly, breaking the fourth wall, which gives the novel a raw, immersive quality. This narrative choice emphasizes animals' agency. Right? Right? What is happening is fourth wall, which gives the novel a raw and immersive quality. Narrative choice emphasizes animals' agency despite his circumstances and draws readers into the complexities of the world. The language is gritty, right? Language. So here language has a sarcasm, wit, but here it's a graphic, is reflecting animal's harsh reality and his rejection of societal attitudes. All right. So what we notice, the difference in these two novels, the point is highlighted is that Trying to Grow is more personal, first person point of view. Animals People is more conversational, is more not direct. But also sometimes when it comes to talking about the life, he breaks the fourth wall. What is the fourth wall? Right? Fourth wall is where you are speaking to the readers. You are talking to the readers. You are in conversation with the readers. You are engaging with the readers. Fourth wall is a new technique, that is where you tell to the audience what they should know as well. It's like it's talking to direct the character and his perspectives. Right? Fourth wall is also used, breaking the fourth wall in drama. Right? Let's say, for example, we had aside, we have a soliloquies. So aside is obviously meant that only readers should listen to that, not the character present on the stage. Soliloquy, no one is on the stage. It's like letting the audience know what he's thinking. And then also, sometimes there is a direct conversation was also introduced with the audience. Right? You are conversing with the audience. Audience is also a character. You are letting the audience to think what you want him to or her to think. You are leaking the information. You are letting the audience know in which direction they should proceed. All right, let's go to the next slide. So the next slide, I'm talking about animal story. On the other hand, is steeped in overt marginalization. Right? His physical deformities are not only the result of personal condition, but also emblematic of systematic injustice. He is marked by the Kafur chemical disaster that physically and socially isolate him from the community. Animal struggle is not only against personal stigma, but also against the institutional forces that continue to exploit or ignore people like him. His community's ostracism and his animalistic self-image emphasize how social and political marginalization intersect, shaping his perception of self and society. So in both novels, it's a humor that functions as a subversive tool. Humor that helps the protagonist resist the pity, patronization, and prejudice that they encounter. Brit's humor is sharp and self-aware, often directed at the societal norm that try to box him in. This bit allows him to maintain a sense of control, preserving his dignity while poking holes in the assumptions people have about disability. Humor becomes a vehicle through which Brit asserts his agency and reshape his reality, turning his perceived weakness into a strength that disarms others and reveal their biases, right? So my dear students and friends, what I have not done in the analysis is not included direct quotations from the text. Because see, if I pick up the quotation, if I keep talking about the quotations, obviously you know that lecture will exceed than it is intended to. But when you are listening to me, I am presuming that you can only understand what I am talking about: Brit's humor, breaking the fourth wall, how it's speaking about assumptions that people have about people with disabilities. You can understand this once you read these two novels. So these are not very bulky novels. And if you have interest in disability studies, doing research in literature, and you want to know more, I suggest you that you should read these two novels, right? So you can find out certain pages, certain lines, or if you refer my book, The Discourse of Disability, you can see I have extensively quoted to analyze the point that I am making here. All right, let's go to the next slide then. In animals humor is raw, right? It's raw. It's defiant. It's very provocative. His use of sarcasm and crude language and dark humor, right? His dark humor underscores his rejection of pity and his rejection of societal structure that exploit him. By embracing his animal identity, and he redefines his place in the world on his terms, albeit with a bitter humor that reflects the harshness of his reality. His humor is at once a defense mechanism and a means of empowerment. That's a point, like how is looking at the humor. It's not only used for defiance, but it also working as a defense mechanism and means of empowerment, allowing him to maintain control over how he is perceived. So Sinha's choice to give animals such a bold and irrelevant voice highlight the character's resilience and refusal to conform to societal expectations, revealing humor as a powerful form of resistance and self-preservation, right? This is an important point I'm making, that both the characters are using humors. Either it's a Brit or it's a animal. But both humor are obviously different, but they both are provocative. They both are used in defense mechanism and also for resistance. Humors are also used for resistance and self-preservation that we can notice in both the characters. Let's look at the next slide, please. So both novels, they go deep into the profound ways bodily experience shapes identity, using the protagonist's physical conditions as lenses through which to explore broader existential question. Brit's fragile bone in trying to grow, save his interactions, self-image, and understanding of life risks and rewards. His physical limitations make him actually aware of the fragility not only of his body, but of relationship, of emotions, of social expectations. His identity is continuously negotiated within the bounds of his body. Yet, Brit attempts to transcend these limitations through intellectual pursuits, relationship, and personal explorations. So in Animals People, what we notice that animal's twisted spine and his gait on all fours symbolize the subhuman status imposed on him by society and the environmental disaster that has marred him. His physical form becomes both his curse and his shield, compelling him to redefine what it means to be human. By rejecting the label of a human, animal critiques a society that considers him less than due to his bodily difference, raising the question of what truly defines humanity His physicality, his rejection of conventional labels, push the reader to question societal norms around beauty, normalcy, and personhood. Moving ahead, what we also notice in Animals People is particularly powerful in his critique of environmental and corporate injustice, highlighting the devastation wrought upon communities by unchecked industrial expansion and governmental neglect. The fictional Khaufpur, based on Bhopal, symbolizes countless communities worldwide left vulnerable to exploitations and abandoned in the face of disaster. Through animal experience, Sinha underscores the dehumanizing effects of capitalism and environmental exploitations, pushing reader to confront the often invisible lives impacted by industrial disasters. So this exploration of environmental justice positions animal story as part of a larger narrative of dispossession, reminding readers that physical deformity and social marginalization are not just personal tragedies, but outcome of structural violence. That is one of the important point is made when it comes to people with disabilities. What Animal People teaches us, if we read critically, what it tells us, that disability, if there is a disability, it's also a result of structural violence, right? It also tells us that how people have dehumanized the lives of people with disabilities. So considering it just as a form of a personal tragedy is not true, right? We have to look at the multiple oppressive structures that camouflaged the violence it produces, structured violence that it has. And it produces the disabled people as if it's their personal tragedy. Society is not responsible from any angle. All right? Let's look at the next slide, please. In contrast, what we see in Trying to Grow, that does not engage as directly with the issues of environmental justice, but instead it critiques the social structure that marginalize those who do not conform to physical and cultural norms. Britt's word is one where conformity is rewarded and difference, particularly bodily difference, is met with discomfort and discrimination. Right? So look at this here. What is happening is that here Trying to Grow is not about environmental injustice, but it's just about social structure that is marginalizing those who do not conform to physical and cultural norms. Britt's word is one where conformity is rewarded, particularly bodily difference, right, is met with discomfort and discrimination. Kanga's portrayal of a Brit's life serves as an indictment of societal pressures around disability, sexuality, and appearance. So though more focused on individual struggles than systematic critiques, the novel still gestures towards a call for societal sympathy, empathy, and change, and is asking reader to question their own perception of normalcy and acceptance. So my dear students and friends, here I am reaching to the last slide, that is Trying to Grow and Animals People. They both confront the question of what it means to be human. While Britt ultimately claims his identity and humanity through self-acceptance and defiance of societal norms, Animal confront his humanity by rejecting it, asserting a non-human identity as an act of resistance. The contrast between Britt's acceptance of his humanity and Animal rejection of it highlight the fluidity of identity and challenges fixed definition of personhood. In both cases, the protagonist redefines themselves not on society's terms, but on their own, offering powerful commentaries on resilience and self-definitions. So these two novels, they are rich, layered works that offer profound insight into the lives of those who exist on the margins. Through humor, bodily experience, and personal resilience, both novels invite reader to reconsider what it means to be human and the ways society must change to embrace difference with empathy and justice. These novels remind us that a struggle for acceptance is as much a personal journey as it is demand for systematic change, challenging us to be more inclusive and just in our perception and in our policies. Right? So with this, I would like to end my lecture here, right? And I would suggest you that you please read novels and look at the analysis. Obviously, I wish I could explore more, but that's what we can do for you at this stage. Thank you so much for your patient listening. See you in the next module. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you again.